Let's take a deep breath. Just close your eyes, relax, and breathe in, breathe out. Now open your eyes. While this may sound like instructions coming from your typical yoga class, it isn't. Breathing is a subconscious process, meaning most of the time you don't think about breathing. You just do it. I say most of the time because now that I've pointed out your active breathing, it's probably at the forefront of your mind right now, lingering as you register each breath. Sorry for freaking you out. You'll forget about it in a few minutes, I swear. According to the Cleveland Clinic, the average person takes 12 to 18 breaths per minute. I'm here to walk you through the biochemical process that occurs in your body with every breath you take. Let's start with the simplest fact. Every time you breathe air, your body is taking in oxygen, increasing the concentration of oxygen in your body. Every time you exhale, your body is releasing carbon dioxide, decreasing your body's concentration of carbon dioxide. The intricacies of oxygen delivery and carbon dioxide elimination takes a bit more explanation. First of all, why does our body require oxygen intake? Simply put, oxygen is required for our bodies to convert fuel into energy. See our fuel equation here, where fuel plus oxygen is converted into carbon dioxide, water, and energy. In the case of our bodies, our primary energy source is ATP. ATP is important as an energy source because it is a triphosphate. The bonds between phosphate groups are incredibly high energy, resulting in a lot of energy, around 30.5 kilojoules per mole, being released once one of the bonds is broken. Since ATP produces so much energy, the activation energy required to break down ATP into a diphosphate is ginormous. This means ATP is stable and cannot be accessed accidentally. I used the word accidentally intentionally, as ATP can still be broken down and converted into ADP via enzyme activity. Enzymes can lower the transition state of ATP significantly, making ATP easily accessible when the body needs it to be. ATP is used whenever the body needs energy, but it is most evidently used when the body undergoes exercise. We can see this in the exercise equation below, where ATP plus water is converted into ADP plus PI plus a proton plus energy, around 30.5 kilojoules per mole. So, now that we know why oxygen intake is important, let's bring this back to the beginning of our video. Breathe in, breathe out. When you inhale, oxygen enters your lungs. We've been over that. How does the oxygen get to the rest of your body? The alveoli within our lungs facilitate gas diffusion due to their single-celled thickness that easily lets gases pass through its membrane. It is important to note that gases diffuse from areas of high concentration to areas of lower concentrations. The partial pressure of oxygen of the atmosphere is approximately 159 torr at sea level. The partial pressure of our lungs is 100 torr. Oxygen is compelled to diffuse into our lungs as the partial pressure of oxygen in our lungs is less than that of the atmosphere. As oxygen diffuses into our lungs, it binds to the hemoglobin within our red blood cells. The Perutz model shows what occurs when oxygen binds to hemoglobin. The model is as follows. Deoxygenated, also known as T hemoglobin, is bound to a proton with free-floating oxygen. On the opposite side of the equation, oxygenated, also known as R-state hemoglobin, is now bound to oxygen with a free proton. Hemoglobin binding is mutually exclusive, meaning that hemoglobin can either be bound to oxygen or to a proton. It cannot be bound to the same site at the same time. Hemoglobin also binds to oxygen cooperatively, meaning that once oxygen is bound to hemoglobin, its oxygen affinity increases, allowing for more oxygen to bind to other models of hemoglobin. Oxygenated blood leaves the lungs through the arteries and travels to your body's tissues. Our tissues have a partial pressure of oxygen of 20 torr. Since the partial pressure of oxygen of our tissues is less than the partial pressure of oxygen of our lungs, oxygen easily binds to myoglobin within our muscles, making myoglobin and oxygen sync. The oxygen-dense tissues now have a surplus of oxygen to be used in our fuel equation. This shifts equilibrium to the right, resulting in the generation of ATP as an energy source, as well as carbon dioxide as a waste product. The ATP produced by our fuel equation can now be converted into energy via hydrolysis, as seen in our exercise equation. Now that our body has produced the energy it needs, let's look at how our fuel equation results in the production of carbon dioxide as a waste product. Carbon dioxide is toxic to our blood, so it must be converted to another form before it can travel through our bloodstream. When in our tissues, carbon dioxide goes through hydrolysis to form carbonic acid. This process is facilitated by the enzyme carbonic anhydrase. Carbonic acid's pKa value is 6.35, which is less than our physiological pH of 7.35. This means that carbonic acid loses one of its hydrogens, becoming bicarbonate. Bicarbonate can now safely travel through our bloodstream as the blood has now been deoxygenated. It returns to our lungs through our veins. Now that bicarbonate has reached our lungs, it is converted back to carbon dioxide by carbonic anhydrase. This carbon dioxide can now be safely exhaled by our lungs. The final process we need to think about in regards to these interlocking equations is proton chemistry. Both our exercise equation and our carbon dioxide elimination equation generate protons as a product, resulting in acidosis. Increasing the concentration of protons results in shifting our Perot's model's equilibrium to the left, which results in our hemoglobin releasing the oxygen that it was bound to. This further inhibits our body to consume fuel, create energy, release protons, and continue the cycle. Thank you so much for listening to my explanation of the chemistry behind our breath.